The Dreamkeeper's lantern. Somewhere between the last blink of a child's eyes and the first breath of morning, the Dreamkeeper walked the sky. He did not make dreams. He didn't invent them, shape them, or control them. Dreams were far too wild for that. No, the Dreamkeeper carried them in a lantern, a glowing, golden lantern that pulsed gently with every dream gathered through the night. It swayed on a hook from his long silver staff, lighting his path as he stepped quietly through moonbeams and over drifting cloud bridges. The lantern was ancient, older than lullabies, older even than stardust. It glowed not from flame, but from wonder, curled up, delicate, shimmering pieces of every child's dream tucked inside. And it had never once gone out. Until tonight. The Dreamkeeper paused over a quiet village tucked in a blanket of mist. He peered down, letting the lantern catch the dreams rising from slumbering windows. Dreams of talking whales, forests with candy trees, skateboarding clouds, and castles made of cats. The lantern flickered. The Dreamkeeper frowned. He shook it gently. The golden light sputtered like a candle in the wind. No, no, he murmured. Not now. He pressed his fingers to the glass. Cool. Too cool. Dreams began to slow. Instead of drifting upward like stars in reverse, they hovered uncertainly, flickering gray at the edges. The Dreamkeeper turned his gaze eastward. The sky there was still velvet dark, but not for long. Dawn had begun to stretch her golden fingers over the mountains. He had only hours left. With a sweep of his cloak, he stepped into the wind and vanished, leaving a trail of soft light behind him and a village of dreams unfinished. Nara didn't know why she opened her eyes. She'd gone to sleep like always, after 3 books, 2 songs, and 1 warm hug from her grandmother. But now, instead of her room, she was somewhere else entirely. She stood on a quiet path, soft as moss beneath her feet. All around her, trees whispered in their sleep, their leaves shaped like tiny bells. A river glowed gently nearby, not with water, but with drifting sparkles that pulsed with gentle colors, pink, blue, gold, and silver. She wore no shoes. She felt no fear. It wasn't the waking world, but it wasn't a regular dream, either. It felt real. "Hello," she whispered. The trees did not answer, but something else did. A flicker, high above the tree line. A floating light, far in the sky, golden, faint, dancing slowly like a candle trying not to go out. Nara felt drawn to it, as if it was calling not with words but with need. So she walked, through a field of feathergrass, under arches of vines that hummed lullabies, until she reached a small clearing with a pool shaped like a teardrop. There, standing tall and still beside the water, was a figure. He wore a long, weathered coat that shimmered like the inside of a pearl, and his face was hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat of midnight blue. In his hand, he held a staff with a lantern at its tip. The light inside it was dim, flickering, failing. "Are you the Dreamkeeper?" Nara asked. The figure turned slowly. His voice was low, kind, and tired. "I am." She stepped closer. "Why am I awake?" "In my own dream." "Because the lantern is dying," he said simply. "And dreams are calling to those who still believe in their power." Nara blinked. "You mean me?" "Yes," said the Dreamkeeper. "You heard the dream light. That means you can help." "But I'm just a girl." He smiled gently. "So we're the ones who first lit this lantern. It was always a child who carried the last ember." Nara looked up at the lantern. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Dimmer, slower. What happens if it goes out? Then dreams will sleep forever. No more midnight castles. No more flying shoes. No more dragon tea parties or starlight whispers. Nara's heart fluttered. "That can't happen." He nodded. "Then we must relight the lantern." "How?" she asked. "With a journey." "Where?" The Dreamkeeper knelt and touched the soft ground. A map bloomed in sparkles beneath their feet. "The dream world has 3 heartlights," he said, tracing a path across the glowing trail. "The ember of wonder, the thread of joy, and the breath of stillness. They once lit the lantern long ago. If we gather them again before morning, the light can return. And if we don't, he did not answer. He didn't need to. Nara stood tall, brushed her hands together, and looked toward the map. Then we better get moving. The Dreamkeeper rose. You're sure? Nara looked up at him. Someone has to believe.
Ido.
The lantern pulsed once. Brighter. The Dreamkeeper and Nara walked side by side, the path of sparkles unraveling beneath their feet like threads spun from moonlight. With each step, the world around them shifted. The trees grew taller and stranger, some with doors in their trunks, others shaped like bookshelves stacked with glowing pages. Creatures peeked from burrows, rabbits with paper wings, foxes made of fog, turtles whose shells chimed like wind bells when they breathed. Is this all dreams? Nara asked in awe. The Dreamkeeper nodded. Every bit. Dreamlight bends what's possible. Here, anything imagined can bloom. Nara grinned. So, if I imagine flying... She closed her eyes and jumped, and for a moment, her feet hovered just above the ground before settling back down. The Dreamkeeper chuckled softly. Even belief takes practice. They crested a hill where the sky shimmered like satin, and far ahead, a glow pulsed from within a dome-shaped mountain. There, said the Dreamkeeper, pointing with his staff. The Ember of Wonder. Why is it inside a mount? Because wonder is often hidden. It's something we go looking for, even when we don't know we're looking. The mountain wasn't made of stone. As they neared, Nara saw it was made entirely of dream glass, clear and delicate, like 1,000 mirrors melted together. The glowing ember flickered deep inside it, like a fire trapped beneath water. How do we get in? She whispered. The Dreamkeeper tapped the glass gently with his staff. The sound echoed, not just around them, but through them, like laughter remembered from long ago. Then a voice echoed back from inside the mountain, small, curious, and excited. Who goes there? What story do you bring? Nara stepped forward.
I'm Nara.
I came to find the Ember of Wonder. A pause. Then the voice said, only those who can still wonder may enter. Nara tilted her head.
Ido wonder.
All the time. About stars and shadows, and how bees know where to go, and how dreams pick which night to come. The glass mountain shivered. Nara thought for a second more. I wonder why things sometimes feel sad when they're beautiful, or why silence can be loud, or if clouds ever fall asleep while they drift. The mountain rang, softly at first, then in rising notes like a bell choir. A seam appeared in the glass, and the mountain opened. Inside, it was warm and glimmering. Floating in the center, hovering just above a pedestal carved from polished moon bone, was the ember. It wasn't fire, not exactly. It looked like a tiny swirl of golden stardust, pulsing gently in the shape of a flame. Nara stepped closer. It's beautiful. Careful, the Dreamkeeper warned gently. Wonder isn't something to grab. It must be received. Nara placed her hands near the ember, palms open. The flame stirred. It floated downward, slowly, curiously, like a kitten investigating something new, and nestled softly into her open hands. A feeling bloomed in her chest, a warmth that made her heart race and her breath slow at the same time. It felt like the first page of a book. The first snow of winter, the thrill of not knowing what comes next. The Dreamkeeper lowered his lantern, and the ember drifted into it. The lantern glowed brighter. The light was no longer dying, just waiting. One down, said Nara, eyes wide. 2 to go, said the Dreamkeeper. They left the mountain and entered a valley where the dreamscape shimmered with color and movement. Music without a source floated through the air, joyful, playful, bouncing on invisible strings. Nara's steps lightened. Her arms swayed. She spun once, then twice, giggling. I feel like I want to dance, she said. The Dreamkeeper smiled. That's how you know you're close. Suddenly, tiny voices shouted in excitement. Catch it. No, don't let it bounce away. It's rolling toward the giggle pit. Nara looked around and gasped. Dozens of children, real and dreamborn, were playing across the field. Some had horns or wings. Others were made of bubbles or clouds. But all of them laughed as they chased a glowing string that zipped and looped through the air like it had a mind of its own. It was the thread of joy. It weaved between trees, looped over swings made of marshmallow ropes, and occasionally paused midair to wiggle, as if it too were laughing. Nara reached for it, and it zoomed away. "Oh, no you don't," she grinned and gave chase. The Dreamkeeper watched, still and smiling, as she tumbled and twirled, chasing the thread through fields of giggles and sparkling grass. She laughed, truly, from deep inside. It wasn't the kind of laugh you do, because something silly. It was the kind that bubbles up when your heart is so full it has to spill over. The thread paused, turned, and floated gently into her hands. The laughter faded to a soft hum as the thread wrapped around her wrist like a friendship bracelet. The Dreamkeeper lowered the lantern again, and the thread of joy floated inside, weaving around the ember of wonder. The lantern now glowed brighter, warmer, almost whole, but not yet. "One last light," he said. Nara nodded, her chest full of sparkle, the breath of stillness. The Dreamkeeper and Nara walked in silence now. Not an awkward silence. Not the kind that feels like something's missing. This was the kind of silence that wrapped around them gently, like a soft blanket just pulled from a sunny windowsill. The kind that needed no words. The dream path led them into a grove where everything was still. No wind, no sound, no sparkle. Even the trees here stood like statues, their branches frozen mid-reach, their leaves caught mid-twirl. In the center of the grove sat a pond, glass-like, unmoving. Nara tiptoed to its edge. "It's so quiet." The Dreamkeeper only nodded. "This is where the breath of stillness lives?" she whispered. "Yes," he said, "but it won't come if we're rushing, or wondering, or laughing. It comes only to those who are present." She sat cross-legged at the edge of the pond, legs tucked beneath her, eyes on the still water. "Like meditating?" she asked. The Dreamkeeper nodded. "Like listening so closely to the quiet that it becomes music." So Nara listened, not with her ears at first, but with something deeper. She noticed her breathing, the way her shoulders rose and fell, the soft thump of her heartbeat in her fingertips, the way the trees didn't move, and yet everything felt alive. Her thoughts swirled at first. They tried to bounce and ask and wonder and laugh again. But she let them float away, like little paper boats drifting into the pond. And after a while, she felt it. A breath not her own.
Soft, slow, deep.
The air around her pulsed gently. The pond rippled without wind. And then, rising from the center of the water, like a wisp, came the breath of stillness. It had no shape, no color, just a cool, shimmering presence that brushed her cheek like the tiniest sigh. She didn't try to touch it. She only closed her eyes, and in doing so, received it. The Dreamkeeper lowered the lantern one last time, and the breath of stillness slipped inside. For a moment, everything stopped. The grove, the path,
The sky.
even time itself seemed to hold its breath. And then the lantern blazed. Not hot, not blinding, but full. Golden light poured from it like sunrise through a keyhole. The ember of wonder, the thread of joy, and the breath of stillness spun gently inside, weaving together into something more. Dreamlight, true and whole. The Dreamkeeper straightened. "We did it," whispered Nara. He turned to her. "You did it." She stood slowly. "What happens now?" He lifted the lantern high. The sky above them cracked, not like breaking, but like a shell opening, and the dream world began to shift. Stars spun backward. Rivers of dream light flowed uphill. The children in the valley paused, looked up, and smiled. The dreams were returning, complete,
Alive.
safe. "Come," he said. It's almost morning. They returned to the dream path, this time floating gently above it. Nara looked below, her village glowing softly in the pre-dawn haze. The roofs still blanketed in stars. The trees swaying to the rhythm of final dreams. The Dreamkeeper stood still, the lantern in his hand now quiet again, but strong. "This is where we part," he said. She blinked. "Wait,
I
have to go." He nodded. No dream lasts forever. Nara looked down at her house, the light of morning creeping in from the edge of the world. "But what if I forget this?" she asked, eyes shining. He crouched to her level and placed something in her palm. A tiny glow.
Soft. Warm. Familiar.
"The ember is yours now," he said. "Not for lighting others' dreams, but for remembering your own." Nara closed her fingers around it. "I'll come back," she said firmly. The Dreamkeeper smiled. "Perhaps. Or maybe one day you'll be me." She blinked, and the sky turned gold. Nara sat up in her bed. The sun peeked through the curtains. Birds chirped. Everything was still. And yet, something shimmered at her bedside. A small, golden glow. She picked it up. It pulsed once, softly. She smiled. She couldn't quite explain how, but she felt different now. Stronger.
Softer.
More real. And that night, when the world grew quiet and the stars came out, Nara closed her eyes.
And dreamed.
Not because she had to, but because she believed. Epilogue. The lantern never fades. And high above, walking gently through the clouds of midnight, the Dreamkeeper carried his lantern. It glowed softly, not just with dreams of whales and kingdoms and upside-down skies, but with the heart of a child who helped relight the world. And so long as even one child dares to wonder, the lantern will never fade.
The end.